What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the quartering, and some potential little, I don't know, a little jab here from the people over at Spotify to Joe Rogan, as it appears he's now been basically shadow banned from the platform. Now you can still find him. They've just stopped recommending his channel, apparently. Uh, it does it mean that there's a huge feud going on? I don't know. It's difficult to know for sure, but there's been some new information come out. And of course, there's always these kind of like weird, inorganic, faux outrage meltdowns that various members of the media. I mean, we just go like last week or 2 weeks ago. Kathy Griffin worries that Joe Rogan is more dangerous to America than Trump. Oh my God, Kathy Griffin's worried about it? Oh man, the bag of bones who's wearing a carrot top skin suit is concerned about something? I too must also be concerned about that said thing. And we're getting all this data after a quick word from this video's sponsor, Sheath. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor. That's right, Sheath. These boxers are designed to keep your balls off your legs. Sheath has 3 individual compartments to keep everything down there separate and cool and comfortable. And hey, since they've been a long-time sponsor, I've heard from many of you who have tried out Sheath and really love it. They were invented by a U.S. Army soldier who came up with the idea for Sheath during his second tour in Iraq, where it was hot as heck and his boys needed to breathe. And on top of all sorts of awesome designs for Sheath, they've added all sorts of winter items, hoodies, gator necks, and all sorts of base layers. Head on over to the link in the description and pinned comment down below. Use my promo code to save and support the channel and keep everything nice, cool, and dry. So here's this article from Deserto. Joe Rogan podcast is not being recommended to new Spotify listeners. A new study has found that Spotify does not appear to be recommending the Joe Rogan experience to new listeners, even though it's pushing other original podcasts. Back in September of 2020, Joe Rogan announced that after a decade of his podcast being available on all platforms, Spotify had given him the bag and was making it exclusive to their platform. It's been a bit of a rocky road ever since the start of the partnership, however, with fans wanting things to go back to the way they were with the YouTube highlights and Spotify coming under fire for platforming some of Rogan's spicy views. I got to admit, and I don't know if you're like this. I don't know how many of my viewers were like a hardcore JRE listener, but I definitely enjoyed watching Joe Rogan clips and Joe Rogan, even some of the long form interviews. I admit I was really only interested in people that I liked already, or like, if I had gotten a recommendation. I wasn't like a religious listener to it. But now that he's not on YouTube, like I almost never think about the Joe Rogan experience. There aren't, there's the rare odd clip here and there that I see on Twitter. But I used to get Joe Rogan recommendations constantly on YouTube. And like now I just never see him and I don't really care. Like life is going on. And I didn't want to give money to Spotify because they are a platform that, while in some cases, they've stood by him, right? Even when artists had threatened to pull their music off the platform. But in other cases, they're your standard far left, overpaid and underqualified, self-entitled douchebag company. And I don't like giving those kind of people my money, as I try to reduce the amount of times I do that. But the stats have proven that the partnership has been a win-win for both sides, with Spotify getting a huge influx of new users, while Rogan retains his spot as having the biggest podcast around. However, something appears now to be off. While Rogan isn't regularly sitting in the most listened spot on Spotify podcast charts, the platform does not appear to be recommending his episodes. I'm sorry, he is regularly sitting there. According to data from over 90,000 episodes of the podcast analyzed by Bumper, Spotify is recommending around 14% of shows under their podcast network. 8% of those are exclusives. The other 6 are either original or adaptations. As per the findings, episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience are no longer a part of this. However, episodes of other podcasts where Rogan features a guest are being recommended to users. Features a guest or as a guest. It's not quite clear why this is the case, as Meisner suggests that the show may already be big enough that it doesn't quite require the help of recommendations to those who aren't listening regularly. But of course, if you're an avid listener of Rogan, you know you're going to see a show pop up on your feed. But why is it not being shown to others? With the money that Spotify has plowed into it, it will raise, or certainly will raise a few eyebrows. Well, I don't know. Does Joe Rogan desperately need more viewers? No, obviously not. But he also did talk, he has, Tim Dillon on a lot. And he had a nice long conversation. Now, by the way, Joe Rogan is claiming all of his clips on YouTube. So I got to be careful he used to let you clip stuff out as fair use. And now he's like using visual match stuff. And he's like, I don't know, it's weird. But like he talks about, you can see the end of this clip is fire with Rogan or with Rumble. By the way, today, Reuters basically put out a hit piece against all non-traditional media. Like YouTube is the best, but Odyssey and BitChute are spreading hate and misinformation and must be shut down. It was absolutely ridiculous. And I'll show you, the end of this clip.
Odyssey, and they're just never going to be as big.
And the laws that we have in place, like the rules that we all agree on, are like, don't threaten people, don't dox people.
Right. That's we do agree on that.
Allow for discourse. Allow for people to agree or disagree, even if they say the nuttiest shit. Like Trump was appointed by Jesus, and he will now be president forever when Jesus returns.
Yeah,
but I think what's going to happen is there'll be places where people are going to say that. Like I do think that what's going to happen. YouTube is this big platform, right? But I do think you have other platforms like Rumble and like Odyssey, and they're just never going to be as big as YouTube.
By the way, a huge shout out to Tim Dillon for mentioning not just Rumble, but also Odyssey. And he should have mentioned BitChute too, but
I think Rumble's got what, 60 million people on there. It's not small.
No, Rumble's really growing. They're growing huge, and so, they're signing people too. They're signing people to go over to Rumble.
Rumble, Chris, you're in my DMs. Maybe there's a Rumble exclusive in the works for me. Probably not. I don't think I would bring enough people to warrant it, but I would actually prefer they spend the money on the big fish, people with 10 million subscribers, see if they could throw a bag at him. I mean, they offered him, I think when Spotify was trying to kind of screw with him, Rumble came in and offered Joe Rogan a similar deal that he had at Spotify to come on their platform, and they wouldn't delete their episodes. The thing is, Rumble is coming around. My episode's on there, and by the way, all my videos go on Rumble, and they're on BitChute, and they're on Odyssey. And even though these platforms aren't super strong for monetization, they will be. They just have to also, navigate the ridiculous level of censorship and fight against the ridiculous monopoly that is Google, because 99% of the ad revenue goes into Google AdWords. Some people still buy ads on Bing, but it's a very small percentage. It's 90-10, 98 probably even. And somebody's going to have to go to Rumble and exclusively buy ads. Like, it's not something that most advertisers do. Now, there are people though that, like, let's say I could pay to advertise my Rumble channel on Rumble and build that and then monetize it in a different way. Maybe I sell more coffee that way, or I sell merch, or I promote people into like backing me as a member or using my Subscribestar. There is a funnel there. It just needs to get better. And that's why I continue to support alt tech, because stuff like this, if it can happen to Joe Rogan, it's certainly happening to the rest of us little guys and gals. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out the sponsor Sheath. I know it's not something a lot of folks think about all the time, but you've got very little to lose, and I think you're really going to like them. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.